Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Suzerain, a new text-based role-playing game that puts you in the shoes of a president of a fictional country dealing with numerous problems. We're rejoining this game in Chapter 2 of the story, and while we have gained some personal wealth through some somewhat conservative but also intelligent investments in some radio technologies, our current economy and government budget is not looking as pretty, with a -2 budget deficit, and the economy is an absolute shambles at the moment. It had been right around the middle point, and then just kind of out of nowhere it dropped down to basically nothing. So we'll have to figure out how best to deal with that. We did invest in a highway project, but that has stalled due to the contractor's poor relationship with its employees and strikes and things like that. And we've just invested in a new industrial zone to try and spur the economy to improve a little bit. We've also invested a little bit more in our military to try and counter the expansionist threat and rhetoric of Rumberg. And we've signed a free trade deal with Valen, who apparently is kind of like a genocidal maniac. I didn't fully realize that. I knew they were kind of like a bad dictator, but I sided with Valen in the trade disputes, and that's probably bad because Angolia, who is our friend and allies, don't like us as much anymore. So I'm making a bit of a hash of my presidency, but we'll see how maybe interesting that makes things as we move forward. We also did potentially make a political enemy in Bornen, I think it was Bornen, where there was sort of this opening to a big festival, and we allowed our wife, we kind of took the main speaker of that event, the mayor of the town, and we said, no, sir, you are not speaking. My wife is speaking in your stead. And she gave a big speech about women's rights, which was pretty well received by the crowd, actually, but probably earned us an enemy for life in that particular politician who's somewhat powerful. And meanwhile, our attempt to reform the Constitution is going through with some moderate reforms, and we are working with elements of both the reformist opposition wing and our own party to try and get enough people to pass a constitutional amendment. With that being said, let's jump right back in and see what we have going on here. We're jumping into the briefing on the current curriculum in schools in the Ministry of Education of Holsword. Ciara had scheduled a short meeting at the Ministry of Education to discuss the current curriculum taught in schools. The ministry building was located in the government district right next to the Ministry of Health. It was tall, narrow, and wedge-shaped like a slightly open book. Near the front gate, there were many statues of world-renowned scientists and thinkers. The largest, of course, was Ardovan Einstein, the greatest scientist of all time. Is he supposed to be based on, like, Einstein? Above the main entrance was the familiar inscription, Interstaten sis Agnicar of Geringia. Oh, God, whatever. Just, education is the premise of progress in all societies and all families. Inside the building, I was greeted by Ciara's assistants. They led me to a meeting room where she was waiting inside. She stood and gripped my hand. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Ciara. I'll cut straight to the chase. Our progressive reform of the Sordland education system is well underway, but there's one sticking point. It involves evolution versus creationism. Oh boy. As it currently stands, schools across Sordland can decide whether to include evolution or creationism, or both, in their curriculum. Rural schools often decide in favor of creationism only, which puts students at a disadvantage when it comes to entering the university. The effect is especially noticeable among young women. My suggestion is to make the teaching of evolution mandatory and preferably ban creationism altogether. I don't agree with teaching our children supernatural nonsense like creationism. I don't see a problem with teaching our children both theories. Evolution is the idea that ought to be banned. It is dangerous. Oh, God. I'm going to take the middle road here, guy. This game is Suzerain, Star Wars fan. It's a text-based role-playing game where you're the president of a fictional country in the 1950s dealing with a whole host of problems, and you're trying not to get cooed, and you're trying to get reelected. It was actually, by the way, apparently some of the developers on this, they might be all of the developers, I'm not sure, they were involved in the Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice mod. I found that out through Benjamin Magnus. Okay, so I know you guys don't like how I always take the middle road, but I really am going to take the middle road here. I don't want to piss off the rural areas too much, But and also I think people of faith, I think it's fine to teach that there's this faith-based idea around creationism, while also acknowledging that science is an important piece in our society, and this is sort of our scientific understanding of the world. Middle road doesn't seem best, Leroy. Well, maybe it doesn't, but I am already dealing with whatever. Middle road is me. That would be one way to compromise, but does creationism really help open the minds of our children? The way I see it, it promotes blind acceptance of the world as it is, no facts or verification needed. Children should be encouraged to think critically and ask questions. Creationism and other religious teachings hinder that. You have a point. Perhaps there's no place for creationism in school. Regardless, I don't believe schools need to ban creationism entirely. I don't see the harm in letting students decide for themselves. What about the so-called evolution theory? Why should children blindly accept that? There must be a place for our religion in schools. How else will children learn moral correctness? Oh, you said it was best. Sorry, my bad, Lieutenant. Charcoal, you're going with 2. I kind of want to go with 4, but I guess we'll go with 2. Honestly, that's a valid argument. I can live with that. Good call, Charcoal. It apparently appeased Ciara. That may have been the right decision. All right. Lucien Galad knocked and entered. Excuse me, some urgent business has kept me away. Welcome, Mr. Galad. I don't trust you, Lucien. Or wait, is Lucien my aide? Maybe I do trust you. It's the other guy who always wants to use the police and the military that I don't trust. I can't remember. It's been a few days. We're just discussing the curriculum. Ciara has made some excellent points. Very well, let's hear them. Continuing from my previous point, it is my conviction that we should require that mandatory teaching of evolution in Sordland public schools and cut creationism out completely. If we want children from rural areas to have the same opportunities as their urban counterparts, this is the way. Opening students' minds and reducing the role of religion in school will also lead to more equality between young men and women. Don't bring your pet cause into this, Mr. President. There are other considerations you may not have thought about. Although I myself believe in evolution, we must be careful not to alienate our rural voter base. We owe a lot to their support. Forcing their school districts to teach evolution could irreparably damage our standing with them. Every modern nation is reducing or removing creationism in their curriculum, yet we are supposed to allow schools to promote fundamental and, yes, sexist ideas from 1,000 years back? Okay. Let's not fight. We can still allow creationism to be taught alongside evolution. CR, you said you could live with that. Yes, although I won't like it, I still believe schools are no place for religion. I won't like it either. You'll have to prepare to lose a lot of voters. Why did I reopen the debate? I should have just skipped ahead. Well, 2 is what I originally said, so we're going to stick to 2. This is probably a bad idea. I should have just skipped ahead. I think that would have been the smart play. I think I had solved something adequately, and then by choosing the option I chose, I reopened the wound. All right. What about what's going on in the news here? Nationalize the Big Four now. The debate about privatization versus national intensifies in the capital. Holsworth Post firmly believes that the president should come down on the side of not nationalization for apparently Big Four companies. Overblown rights case appealed. Okay. Rayne's curriculum compromise forces schools to evolve slightly. I like that headline. It's exactly what I did. All right, what's up now? Lobby the assembly. Read the report from Holsword. Kirso Klibner is preparing a bill which aims to unify Sordish education by making Sordish the only language accepted in educational institutions, excluding specific foreign language studies. Lobby the administration. What are we doing here? Chief strategist Lucien Galatas prepared a lobbying effort in the parliament which would specifically sway on the fence MPs for the upcoming constitutional vote. The plan involves lavish parties, gifts, and even some political favors. Should we go ahead with the plan? Spend money to sway MPs? Spend a generous amount of money to sway MPs. Don't bribe the MPs. Oh, corruption. I'm gonna hedge here. I'm gonna corrupt myself a little bit, but not to the. I feel like if I spend 2, it may ensure the vote goes our way, but it also probably gets exposed and then makes me look real bad. So I'm gonna go with sway money to sway MPs because I think I already have enough support without too much bribing to get people to where I need them to be. Also, like, it just said parties. It didn't say, like, I'm actually giving cash handouts to anyone. So I can live with that. All right, we're on to Chapter 3, The Victim of Changes. So Chapter 3, I think, is where people said things really start to fall apart, so... Sabia, thank you very much for the follow. What's the news say? World ignores Blutish plight. Valgism man shot after burning Angolian flag. Wow. Why did he burn the Oh, that's where the immigrants are that a lot of people don't like. Star Wars fans, 12323, thank you for the follow. It's reported that in the villages around Suzerain, a group of the BFF missionaries are seeking to recruit militant fighters to fight for the BFF. Governor Braun reported that the gendarme forces in the area are now actively working toward eliminating the threat. More insurgents, I see. I wish there was a little bit more foreign policy. A call from Marcel Cornti. Uh-oh, that's bad. He's the guy who we accepted a bribe from, right? Or basically accepted blackmail from. He's the media mogul. I was in my office looking through the agenda for the upcoming meeting at the Ministry of the Economy. The meeting was going to be about the ownership of the Big Four, the 4 largest companies in Sordland: Heart of Sordland, Berga Steel, Sordish State Corporation, and Needham Mining Group. Some of these companies were controlled in part or entirely by the state. The others were mostly or completely privatized. I had the power to change that. The phone rang and I put down the agenda. Greetings, Mr. President. I'm sorry to disturb you before such an important meeting, but I thought now would be a good time to talk about our arrangement. I'm sure you'll agree the support I and my network have given your administration has been nothing but beneficial. Half of the non-state media in the country has been sharing positive news about you and downplaying negative events. There's always more you could be doing for us. I haven't seen any benefits yet. Our partnership has been successful so far. Oof. I don't like that this is on the phone, but okay. I'm glad you agree. Your public opinion could have nosedived were it not for us. On another note, I can't help but mention the tax breaks, Mr. President. They've been extraordinarily beneficial to our quarterly performance. Haas is now operating on a much larger revenue pool. You have successfully strengthened the backbone of the Sordish economy. Really? Because this says not so much up here on the top left. The economy's 1 out of like 10. Of course, private corporations had to have a financial leg up to boost investments. Needless to say, I expect you reinvest any surplus back into the economy to create more jobs. It was a tough decision. Don't make me regret it. Let's go with 2. Increasing our investments inside Sordland is a key topic in our board discussions. Out of goodwill, I will share a key piece of information. The Lothberg Group has contingency plans if you decide to do anything rash that would disrupt their empires. You can't blame them, can you? Imagine someone trying to take your authority and personal wealth away without your consent. We'll only ask for a reasonable share, nothing out of the ordinary. I don't see why we should be enemies. If everyone plays their cards right, it'll all be fine. Now, let's talk about those cards. Since the start of your campaign, you've wisely committed to a market economy. Judging by that, I'm sure you're looking into privatizing some of the companies that are currently state-owned. I believe, therefore, that privatizing both Needham Mining Group and the Sordland State Corporation would be in both of our interests. After all, I'm considering buying stock in both companies. Privatization might be too much. I'll see what I can do. I'm not thinking about privatization. That's exactly what I was thinking. Privatizing might be too much. I'll see what I can do. Think about it this way. It is another step forward in strengthening our economy. Please at least think about it. I will be blunt. Mr. Tusk is unfit to be the spokesperson for the Lothberg Group. His archaic thinking has only preserved a status quo that benefits himself and precious few others. It's high time something changes. So he wants me to interfere in the oligarchs. I see where this is going. I want him gone. It's time the group had a proper leader. Me. Here's what I propose, a win-win situation. If you promise me a majority of shares from the privatization, he would lose considerable power, which means I could take over. You may recall that one of the terms of our agreement was that I may ask you for one favor. Well, this is it. Well, like, what have I done that he could go after me with? Corruption-wise, like, I haven't really done much. I'll have to think about it. Think about all the free help you've gotten from me and the many scandals you might have to cover up on the way to re-election. I haven't had any scandals. What scandals? Maybe like the border crossing situation. General Staff negative reaction. Earlier this week, General Staff had a meeting in which Josef Lankia had voiced his concerns about the administration. According to rumors, Lankia said if the president doesn't demonstrate the leadership that Sordland needs, both domestically and abroad, then it's time for a new person in the Maroon Palace. The sooner the better. The fate of the Republic depends on it. What? I thought we were buddies. Now the general's calling me out? Lucien scheduled some time with me to discuss the potential political repercussions of the upcoming economy meeting. He arrived on time as usual and took a seat right across from me. Good morning, Mr. President. You look a little bit tired. Are you getting enough sleep? I'm trying, sir. Don't push yourself too much. I'll try not to. I must say, you don't look much better. Ha! Well, I booked some of your time to pre-plan for today's meeting at the Ministry of the Economy. We need to be cautious. Any grand plans about the economy also heavily influence our political standing. We'd be changing our relationship with the old guard, the oligarchs, and the opposition. As you know, this meeting will give the opportunity to alter the ownership of the Big Four, the largest corporations in all of Sordland. We can start the process of nationalization or privatization, or we can just keep the status quo. Again, I remind you that any change will tip the already fragile balance. I personally think we should stay out of this and keep things as they are. There's no need to make new political enemies at this stage in our term. But ultimately, the decision is yours. What are you leaning toward? How should we move forward? We aim to privatize these companies. If we want to improve our relations with the West, we need to privatize our economy. Privatization will help bring the country out of recession. The oligarchs are powerful. They might aid us into the assembly if we help them. Truth to be told, I don't care what anyone thinks or says. I will do what I believe. Privatization will bring the country out of recession. That may certainly be true, but taking everything out of the state hands may have dire repercussions in a country like ours. We need to tread carefully. One thing to remember is that since you've been transparent about promoting a market economy, privatization will not cost us much support. Good. So that'll fit with what we've already been trying to do. Unfortunately, we've missed our government budget targets for the quarter. The plan to change the ownership of important assets could help us generate much-needed resources to further improve economic development before the next election. It's just something to consider as is our relationship with the oligarchs. We need to remember that they only care about their own profits. Unfortunately, we're not on good terms with them. This situation has been obstructing some of our efforts with the economic recovery. However, if we implement a privatization plan, they would sure be delighted. Still, we need to make sure that we don't go overboard with it. If we do, we might lose our base in both the USP and among the people. We don't want the Lothburg Group to be our enemies. If we privatize only part of their companies, perhaps we can get out of this unscathed. That would certainly be a wise compromise. Some of my connections indicate there seems to be a contest for leadership in the Lothburg Group. It looks like Mr. Corntati is making moves to become a key figure. Probably wants his father seated at the head of the group, and Tusk doesn't want to let go of it. It's a significant power struggle considering there are heads of Sordland's two largest private corporations. If we over-privatize our state-owned companies, the Sorter State Corporation and the Nita Mining Group, it could result in the balance tipping to one side. They would fight over buying up shares and cause chaos. Since you've already made the decision to privatize, you need to decide to be decisive in your follow-up actions. Did Marcel or Tusk contact you? I received a call from Marcel. He didn't want to leave Haas untouched. That's not what he said. He said he wants Tusk's spot. The internal conflict among the oligarchs puts us in an interesting position. Our relationship with Walter Tusk hasn't been good so far. Any move we make has to be calculated and thought through. I'll inform Mr. Hall of your decision, and he'll make the necessary preparations to formulate a plan. I must go back to work now. See you at the next meeting. Charcoal, the game is literally a text-based RPG. It is 100% text-based in essence. It's very similar, I would say, to something like We the Revolution, but there's more gameplay mechanics in that game. Vaxland Navy active in the American Sea. Okay, that's not good. Maybe I can repair my relations with Agnolia if I side with them. The problem is Vaxland's Navy is so damn powerful that, it would cut our own trade coming out of Lockhaven off if they take Helgeport and close the channel. So it'd be definitely against our interest to let them push Agnolia around, but Vaxland is so much larger than us that I'm not sure we could actually win even if we decided to get involved. Yeah, tensions continue to rise. Ownership changes of major corporations. Yeah, it's not as linear as We the Revolution. There's a number of potential political outcomes that can occur. Whereas We the Revolution, it's kind of got two paths. Assistants took our coats and showed us into the meeting room where Simon, Edith, Gus, and Mikael were waiting. As soon as I entered, their chatter stopped and they looked up. After a few pleasantries, everyone but Simon took their seats. Saucy Wigless, thank you very much for the follow. Like your name. He opened his briefcase, produced a folder, and proceeded to go over some of the documents. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Ministry of the Economy. Without further ado, we're, of course, here to discuss our economic shift toward privatization. Mr. President, before you arrived, Mikael and Edith were expressing their delight at your decision to go down this path. I'm glad we're staying firm on the path of a market economy. This was certainly the right decision. It will boost our economy, put more money in circulation, and give the government much-needed funds. It's a win-win situation for us. I'm glad we're on the same page. Let's move on to how we can go about implementing a privatization plan. Turn to page 6. As you can see on the document, the first company up for discussion is the Sorter State Corporation. The Sorter State Corporation, or SSC for short, has been around for over half a century. Most recently, they've been handling a wide range of state construction projects. In their portfolio, they have government buildings, various infrastructure projects, state libraries, embassies, basically anything government related. Privatizing a company like this would certainly increase the government's budget. That, of course, would result in lots of opportunities for us to provide for our citizens. The funds could also be used to boost our popularity, especially with the elections approaching. Not to mention the various other areas in which we can and should spend money. However, there's one catch. For the conservative majority of the USP would not like this decision at all. For them, the state companies are part and parcel of the Swordish identity. If we privatize these companies entirely and sell too many shares in them, it will have consequences for us in the Assembly. What would be the effects if we fully privatize? Tremendous amount of money, invest the money. Popularity might not make up for losing the lion's share of the conservative vote. Conservative compromise the majority of the Assembly. What about a minority share? Be better than nothing, but why stop there? Minority stake won't help our government as much. We need to be decisive. On the other hand, a minority share would create less friction. This would be my preference. Let's move on to the next option. Page 26. It's one of the largest mining corporations in eastern Maricopa, let alone Sordland. Whoops. They call themselves the leaders of the world in coal. They certainly have enough evidence to back that up. Perhaps they're not as large as the SSC, but we still have a lot to gain if Needham Mining Group is privatized. I fully support privatization of this company to any extent. Certainly a good option to gain enough capital to end the recession once and for all. I have contacts in Needham. It is one of the most valuable corporations of the last decade. I can vouch for that. I have personal experience with the company myself. It would be a great addition to any portfolio. What if we fully privatize them? I hate to repeat myself, but fully privatizing one state-owned company, let alone two, will anger our conservative voter base. All the budget in the world won't matter if you aren't reelected. What about selling a majority share? Coupled with a minority share of the SSC, that is the way to go. Ready to make a decision. So, I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to sell a majority of the Needham Mining Group, and then we are going to sell a minority of the Swedish state corporation. I'm interested in selling off one of the groups, but I don't want to sell everything off. So I think this is what we're going to do here. We're going to privatize the Needham Mining Group, and then we're going to partially privatize, but still maintain control of the Sordland state corporation. As sort of, it's a bit of a compromise, but it is moving us toward the privatization direction. I want to keep the SSC majority state-owned because they're important for infrastructure projects, and I think it's a good idea to have control of the infrastructure. You know, if we're going to start using them more for infrastructure projects, it makes more sense to keep them under our direct control, whereas the mining group is just sort of a cash cow. So we'll sell most of our stake there. There will be a little bit left over if we need to generate further funds in the future. Make sure those gains happen. I want to see the results as soon as possible. Okay. So we got 2 more hexes of budget. So we went back to balancing the budget. We sold off the state assets, and the budget is now balanced, but the economy is still in shambles. So there's that. Unified Education Language Act, the result of the economic direction. Sign or veto the Unified Education Language Act that was approved by the Grand National Assembly. No, I'm not going to enforce Sordland teaching only Swordish language. I'm not going to oppress our minorities in that way. So veto that. Results of the economic direction. The privatization process has begun, and as I had expected, Sordland's two most prominent oligarchs wanted to speak to me about it. Lucien showed me Marcel Cornty and Walter Tusk into the conference room. The two men sat across the table from me, leaving an empty chair in between them. It's good to see you, Mr. President. It's been a while. Here, take this as a gift. Ha! He handed me a bottle of Elroy Maroon 30-year-old. I heard Peter say that's your favorite one. Well. All right. No matter how you bribe me, you won't get what you're here for, Walter Tusk. I'm fed up with these oligarchs trying to bribe me. I'll just be polite. Thank you for the gift. Old man, you always think so small. You lack the vision to see the bigger picture. A real gift. Car keys? Dear God. I literally can't take a car. I can't take a car. That's just disastrously bad. No, I'm not going to do that. Whatever you want, bribery won't work. Really? A simple gift. I bet this has nothing to do with the recent privatizations. Anyway, gentlemen, please take your seats. They sat down. Lucien produced a set of documents from his briefcase. He put on his reading glasses. So Mr. Tusk and Mr. Cornty, President Rayne, is about to sell private shares in Sordland's two largest national corporations. And now you're here showering him with gifts. You're both clearly more skilled at business than you are subterfuge. So tell us, why do you deserve to claim these shares before they go on the general market? President, listen. You and I haven't been on the best of terms lately, but I want to nurture a profitable relationship between us where we both win. These shares are very important to me. If I had them, I could do so much more for Sordland, so much more for you. You haven't even seen what I and my connections are capable of. Do you want to get reelected? No problem. I'll make sure of it. This is my offer to you. I will do whatever it takes to make you president for another term. Doesn't that sound great? If I win, I will do so through my own strength. Well, of course. Don't make light of me, President. I'm saying this precisely because I believe you are capable of doing it. That's why I want to help you. Before you spew those big words, make sure you can actually do it, Walter. Mr. President, first off, Mr. Tusk here is lying about the extent of his influence. True, he might have command over some people in the assembly, but what he is sitting on top of right now was built by my father, Conrad Cornty. I want to be straightforward with you. If you give me the shares, I will topple this old man, which means I will have the same influence he does over the assembly. I can sway them as you like. But that's not all, Mr. President. Don't forget that I have something that gives me an edge over this man and his archaic ways, a powerful tool, control of the media. I can give you the power over both the assembly and the Swordish public. Basically a guaranteed win. He could never ever hope to beat this offer. You little snake. You're 20 years early to be head of the Lothburg Group. I made the group what it is. Oh my God. To me, Marcel actually seems like a bad bet. The only problem is we've kind of already allied with Marcel. But I feel like his promises are too good to be true. And like the old connections in the back rooms that the old oligarchs have, that seems to me probably tied more to Marcel. Still, we did make an agreement with Marcel. We didn't make an agreement with Walter. The shares will go to Marcel.
What? Haven't you heard a word of what I have said? That's right, old man. You learned your place today.
Oh, God. Well, that looked corrupt. Well, I kept my promise with the media mogul. I mean, I should have just said, listen, you guys can fight for these when they enter the open market yourselves. We're probably going to end up getting like an old guard coup, or the Supreme Court will refuse to stand with us in the constitutional amendment. All right, there's an assembly vote on the Grand National Assembly. I was thinking if my attempts of changing the Constitution would end any differently than Alfonso's. I looked out the window as the noise of the city diminished and saw that we were already inside the territory of the palace complex. The palace complex was large, housing the buildings of all the government branches in the center of Holsword. It was one of the biggest developments in Sordland. The Maroon Palace stood on a small hilltop surrounded by trees. We passed by the palace and entered the forest that divided it and the Grand National Assembly. We drove on the small road inside the forest, accompanied by the sound of birds and bugs coming from the tall trees. Are you okay back there, sir? Hey, Serge, I'm okay. How are you? I'm as good as I can be, sir. Did you know that Mr. Tarkin's soul came to Holsword this morning? I've heard some politicians were talking about it today. There's going to totally be a coup. They're going to try and bring the old guard back, the old general back. I thought he left the mainland and lived in Dury Island, never to return back to politics, but they were saying he might be here to exercise his Member of Honor rights for the first time. Who was talking about this? I overheard several men talking about it around the gardens of the Assembly, sir. I'm not sure who they were. Could just be rumors, of course. Do you think he's here about the vote? Yes, Serge, most likely. Well, I'm sure he will support you, sir. I doubt that. Thank you, Serge. Before you go, I want you to take this. My father had this pocket watch, and he said it protected him from the evils of this world. I want you to have it. Okay. Am I going to get shot, and then the pocket watch is going to stop the bullet? I looked at the back of the watch. It was made in 1920. I put it in my front pocket. Oh, that's totally what's going to happen. I'm totally going to get shot in the chest, and the pocket watch is going to save my life. For sure. I'm putting it in my front pocket, of course. I walked on the white stone stairs of the Grand National Assembly. The entrance looked like a temple gate from a classical era. Super Chacho, your country's presidents? What country are you from? Inside were the vast corridors of wood and white stone. I joined the crowd of people that were walking slowly toward the parliamentary hall. Suddenly, I noticed Lucien emerge from the crowd of packed politicians in front of me. He looked relieved when he saw me. Sir, there you are. Have you seen Mr. Vice President? He's nowhere to be found. I've just arrived, Lucien. I hope Peter arrives soon, too. But anyway, how about you? Are you ready to finally face the assembly, sir?
Hell yeah!
I've just heard something worrying from Serge. No need to worry about anything, sir. Come, we must go inside. We followed the crowd into the parliamentary hall. After we were inside, we split with Lucien to take our designated seats. I went up to the elevated platform overlooking the hall and sat down. I waited as MPs slowly started to gather inside the hall and take their places. After a while, I saw Gloria walk to her elevated seat at the center of the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will shortly begin with today's agenda of USP proposed changes to the Constitution of Sordland. According to the Constitution, constitutional amendments require 2/3 of the members of the Assembly to vote in favor of it. If the vote succeeds, the proposal will be sent to the Supreme Court. The proposal in question includes 3 points. You'd vote for President THE? Well, thank you, young thuggers. By the way, 10TNT, thank you very much for the follow a few minutes ago. First section of the changes, Article 57, is modified with the following. Blah, 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 blah. She struck her gavel down, which echoed into the hall. The sound made some MPs jump in shock as they woke up from their deep sleep. I felt the need to stand up and stretch. I looked at the hall from our elevated platform overlooking it. Most members of the assembly got up from their seats and joined one of the many group discussions that emerged around the hall, while some immediately walked up to the ballot box to cast their votes. Go down to the hall where all the MPs are. Keep watching from your seat. For democracy! I'm expecting your votes. I don't know. What do we do here, guys? Part of me says go down to the hall where all the MPs are. We could keep watching from our seat. We'll do that. We'll play the cautious game for a moment. Keep watching from my seat. I saw some people cast their votes, but many were still walking around the hall talking to each other. Then I noticed Kessero Klibner approach me. He stopped below the platform and looked up at me. Go down and talk to him. Mr. President, how are you feeling about the vote? I'm hoping for the best. The best outcome for the proposal is it to fail. I've lost my respect for you, Mr. Rayne. There are many problems that Sordland needs to be addressed, and you stall us with these so-called democratic reforms. I know you'll fail. You'll eventually lose the entire administration. You'll lose the game. And I hope I'll be there when it happens. Watch your words now. Suddenly he turned away from me and walked toward his seat. Then I saw Lucien waving at me. He was among a group of people at the corner of the hall. I walked up to him. On my way, I bumped into Manson Leek. Mr. President, I'm sorry I didn't see you there. I wish you good luck with the vote. I hope I have your support, Mr. Leek. Most of the independents will be voting yes, Mr. President. Even though we feel it doesn't address the issues we care about the most, it is still a step in the right direction. But I have to say, the proposal is disappointing. I'm sorry it disappointed you. I hope you don't ignore the Blutish rights as well, Mr. President. But anyway, I'll go cast my vote now. I finally walked toward Lucien without further interruptions. He was in a conversation with members of our party. He looked at me when he saw me approach. Sir, did you vote yet? We have to be quick. What's the rush? I'll explain on the way. I signed my vote and prepared the envelope. Together with Lucien, we then walked to the center of the hall to cast our votes. He kept rushing me through the process. Gloria bowed her head slightly in respect after she saw us vote. Lucien pulled my arm and whispered into my ear, Mr. President, there's an issue. Tarquin's soul is here. I know. You have to accelerate the voting. We need everybody to vote as soon as possible. We don't know what he can pull off right now, but if the members in the assembly see him, he might influence them against the proposal. Should I talk to him? I advise against that right now. People should focus on the vote at hand. We can't let him sabotage it with his big personality. Go ask Gloria to speed up the voting. Sir, what do we do? We have to make sure he doesn't sabotage anything. Gentlemen, why don't you go back to your seats and not stand here near the ballot box? I didn't expect to see a president who ignores his own party here. Well, a vote is a vote, I guess, right? Where were you? Did you cast your vote? He looked at Gloria as she and her assistant counted the votes. The speaker's seat was only a few meters away from our platform. I really hope the proposal goes through. Soul is here. What? I hope he doesn't sabotage the vote. This is gonna go bad. This is gonna go bad. Just shut up, Peter. Peter, shut up. Woot woot! 2/3 majority! We win the vote! The procedure will be presented to the Supreme Court shortly for the final voting procedure.
Yes! We did it!
Thanks for your hard work, Peter. I want to congratulate the members of the Assembly and the President for passing changes to our old and untouched Constitution. I also want to thank members of the United Sordland Party for working with our party. I hereby invite the Supreme Court to do the right thing by not ignoring the decision of the Grand National Assembly that was elected by the Sordish people. Suddenly I noticed Tarquin Sol slowly stand up from his seat at the back. He was seemingly struggling and using the help of his cane. When he stood up, his gaze wandered the hall as all of the members of the Grand National Assembly went silent.
We did it, but no thanks to you, Mr. President.
Let's see here. Do I want to call him out? Like, I don't know how that'll go. Call out to him or keep watching him? Call out to him. The faithful and selfless servant of our nation, the distinguished faces of our republic, Tarquin Sol. 2 is the ultra chaos answer? Yeah, that seems like what I just selected, right? Challenge him to a duel. Winner becomes president for life. I don't feel like I should have selected what I selected. Maybe I can win some points with them. Congratulations, Mr. Rayne. In any case, the proposal has passed the Assembly, and now we have to think about the Supreme Court. Orso Hawker will be a problem. I'll talk to key figures of the court. We'll be fine. I have complete trust in you. So when am I getting shot? I don't know, Super Chacho. I'm waiting to see. Maybe I'll get shot later? I haven't gotten shot yet. I guess I was wrong about that pocket watch, at least so far. There's still time. Constitutional changes passed by the Assembly. The Grand National Assembly of Sordland on Friday approved the amendments to the Constitution that was proposed by the United Sordland Party. I officially announced the approval of constitutional amendments, said Speaker Gloria Tory, after the proposal was passed in a public session. According to Tory, 179 lawmakers voted in favor of the amendment. Only one member of the Assembly abstained from voting in the session, attended by 251 members of the 250-seat parliament, including President Rayne and the member Honor Tarkin Sol. Next week, Friday, the Supreme Court will also vote on the amendments, ultimately deciding if the changes will be implemented or not. So we had 179. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed yet another look at Suzerain, a new text-based choose-your-own-adventure role-playing game where you're the leader of a fictional country dealing with a lot of problems in the 1950s. Really enjoying this game. This was taken from a live stream over on my Twitch channel. Hope you guys are still enjoying the series. Leave your thoughts down below. We convinced our party to vote for us in the amendment of the Constitution, and until next time, we're out.